Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another PCM hockey podcast. As today is episode 16, as we have some special guests join the show once again, as we have my bud Kelvin Hector and also Mark Jones as well. As we're going to be talking about a lot of things. We haven't uploaded a podcast since the Stanley Cup final. Of course, as you guys all know, the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup. And now we're in the middle of the offseason, which is what we've been waiting for. Oilers fans, Canucks fans, Flames fans, they all been waiting for this offseason to see whether or not their team's going to improve or not. And we got a lot of stuff to talk about, especially as me and an Oilers fan, and also as a Canucks fan. I mean, there's been lots of moves there. And Flames, they've done a little bit of stuff. We're going to be talking all about that and also all the big deals that happened there in free agency with other teams. And we're also going to be talking about the big Seth Jones trade, the Seattle Kraken coming to the NHL. There is just a whole whack ton of stuff. So let's slow it down and introduce everyone. Calvin, how you doing today, my man?
Sorry, my mic was muted. Apologies. It's a little rusty here.
It has been a minute.
It's been a time.
It has.
I'm doing great. The job's going well up in northern Alberta. The weather's been nice, a little too dry. Crops out here aren't growing very well, so that's the big thing. Lots of news about that. But besides that, I just want hockey. Like the Olympics are fun and all to watch, but where's the hockey at? Let's get back to hockey.
Well, it's legit, like it ended not even that long ago, but we feel so deprived from it now, and it feels like a century ago that we've seen the Stanley Cup Finals. But I'm ready for October to come. I'm really excited for that. So, Mark, how you doing, bud?
Doing very well. Yeah, just trying to think about and catch up on what's going on with Vancouver's team, and yeah. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. Just finished up my little job here in Chetwynd, and then going to be moving on to FSJ and going to get a job down there. Maybe do some Fort St. John Huskies stuff and just continue growing, hopefully. But yeah, it's been a lot. It's been almost hard to maintain with the amount of stuff that happened yesterday. There was, I think, 162 signings, something like that yesterday, or on day one, which, last year there was only 62 signings on day one. So there is a huge difference on the amount of news that was just firing on my phone during my work day yesterday. And it all happened in under like 3 hours. It was nuts. So let's get into talking about everyone's team. We're gonna, of course, start off with Calvin. We're gonna talk about the Calgary Flames, go in alphabetical order here, and we're gonna talk about the Calgary Flames first. We're gonna kind of talk about their draft and everything like that, but I'll let Calvin take it away and talk about the draft and all the new requirements there for the Calgary Flames.
Okay, well, we're talking about the draft, and I have to mention the expansion draft for the Seattle Kraken and how they stole our captain from us. And when I say steal, that's just from a heartbroken aspect. Gio will be missed. I was kind of hoping that somehow there'd be a deal swung that would keep Giordano with the Flames for one more season, just so we could hit that 1,000 game mark in the Calgary Flames jersey and then maybe retire at the end of the season. But obviously, that wasn't in the cards. So hopefully Gio does well for Seattle. I hope he helps them out, but not too good because the Flames need to finish in the standings higher than Seattle. But yeah, so I'll start with that, and then moving on to the entry draft. I like the Flames' first round pick. Matt Coronado, I believe his team was the Chicago something Wolves or whatever of the U.S. Hockey League.
Yeah, I think it was the Chicago Steel. He's an amazing pickup. That was actually one of the players that I wanted the Oilers to select in that 20 overall selection. Amazing winger, amazing pickup there for the Flames.
Yeah, and I think he'll fit in well into what the Flames have to offer. Obviously, they're lacking in the. We need a center. We need a top line center, but those are really hard to find. So at least filling in the wings for now, and especially an offensive winger, can really help. Especially in the sense that, like, if you don't have that center, well, you need offense from elsewhere. And so from the sides, from the wings, it always helps. And I don't think the Flames are necessarily going to put him right into the lineup right away. I think he's still young. Maybe another season before we see him cracking the Flames lineup as a regular. I don't think he won't play a couple games. I definitely think, say, later in the season, if the Flames are not doing so well, he might play early. But I'm excited for this draft pick. I think he'll do really well, and I think he kind of, with his offensive prowess, he'll definitely be a good second liner for the Flames to start, and then he'll have third. I think third line will be a fit for him for now if he does play, and then he'll have to work his way up and show that he can be an offensive skilled winger in the NHL, and then hopefully work his way up from there.
And then otherwise, the draft was, I gotta say, pretty solid for the Calgary Flames. It was a really solid draft for them. I think they actually had, a successful draft. They also picked up Cameron. Why not? I mean, that's just an amazing name,
Why not,
first
Vic?
of
Why
all.
not?
Yeah, right? Like, why not? But Coronado, I also heard William Stromgren is also a good selection there for the Calgary Flames as well. He is a left winger there as well. I think he played in the Swedish league. Nice looking prospect there as well. Has put up some good numbers. But now we'll jump over. I'll let you.
Sorry, I was
cut
just
in there.
going to interject with a funny little story before we get on to the next part.
Oh yeah, go straight ahead.
So Stromgren, though, I had a teacher in high school. His last name was Stromgren, and he told me what his name meant, like how it translates into. I don't remember if he said it was Dutch or Swedish, but I'm guessing Swedish because this William Stromgren is Swedish. So,
Yeah.
But it translates into stream branch. So, fun fact for y'all: Stromgren translated means stream branch. We'll see if that has anything to do with hockey. It really doesn't, but that's a fun fact for you.
Nice little cool fact. But we'll jump into the offense here for the Flames here. They picked up Blake Coleman. And they also traded for Tyler Pitlick and Nikita Zadorov and also Daniel Vladar, who I think is going to be a decent backup goalie for Jacob Markstrom and a cheap guy at that. But how do you think of the Calgary Flames moves? And do you feel like, they're still missing out on that centerman or something? Maybe could they go after somebody? What do you think?
Well, I still think the Flames' best way to upgrade at the center is to somehow involve Monahan in a trade. I think that's the only way they're going to upgrade at center this season, unless someone really shows up, someone who we don't think is going to, and has a surprising season. But Coleman's a good ad. I don't think he'll probably be slotted in those top two lines for sure for the Flames. It just depends on what wingers he plays best with. And then, of course, we lost a little bit of depth at center because Derek Ryan, I know you were going to get to that, but I'm going to beat you to it. Derek Ryan signed with the Oilers as a free agent. So that's a big loss for the Flames down the middle depth-wise because Ryan always showed up in that fourth line or third line position when he needed to, and he was just a hard worker. So I think where they went then was with Trevor Lewis, signing him to a one-year deal, try him out, and see if he can replace Derek Ryan. Also a lot cheaper because Ryan signed for $2.5 million over 2 seasons. And then actually, yeah, that's a lot cheaper. Sorry. My math was going to screw with me there. Trevor Lewis only signed for $800,000 1 year. So that's not horrible. And just to add depth to that center position. But Coleman for sure slots in top 2. Lewis will be hopefully Ryan's replacement. And I don't know what it is with the Flames, but they seem to, of recent, just love having a Russian defenseman around. I don't know what it. I can't remember the last time the Flames haven't had at least one Russian defenseman in their system, or some guy that was up and down with the Flames that was Russian. I don't know what it is. They just love having Russian defensemen. Maybe it's their size. I don't know.
He's a really good defensive defenseman, though. There's no doubt about that. Nikita Zadorov will be, he's not really the replacement for Mark Giordano because it is hard to replace him. He did have a down year a little bit this year, but, most of the Flames did. But I think Nikita Zadorov is just going to be a perfect guy to maybe go alongside of Rasmus Andersson, if that's what they're thinking about doing with Zadorov here. Either that, you got Shilton and also Valimaki up on that left side as well. So it's going to be, and also Noah Hannafin as well. Can't forget about him. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Flames do with that back end there, and how well Zadorov will perform also in that back end. And Blake Coleman, it was weird that he went to the Calgary Flames and took that as a spot. No offense to the Calgary Flames, but usually, Blake Coleman and his stature, you usually think like a very dominant playoff team would be right on after him, but the Flames scooped him on up, and I think it's a great pickup for the Flames. This is a type of guy that I think Sutter likes. Blake Coleman is that two-way dominant. He puts it all on the ice, and I think that's another player that Calgary Flames need. They're going with a little bit of a more physical touch, especially with their coach being Sutter. They want to go with that more defensive touch. So Blake Coleman fits in perfectly for the team. So instead of leaving our other guest out as well, Mark, let's talk about the Vancouver Canucks a little bit. We'll jump over to them. As they've been having, some interesting stuff happen. They reshaped their defensive core, picking up Tucker Poolman and Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and also re-signing Travis Hamonic. The defensive core, I gotta say, is not looking very pretty. You want to talk about offense? Yeah, this defensive core could probably produce you a little bit of offense, but defensively, I don't know, man. I don't even know if I can really trust this defensive core. You also bought a Holtby, kind of a new looking forward core. With losing Beagle, Erickson, and I'll send it over to Mark. How are you feeling about this Canucks offseason so far?
I think it's encouraging. I mean, I think from the standpoint of the big, as I think you acknowledged when I tweeted it out at Mark on the air 88 the other day when I heard about the Ekman-Larsson trade. I think the bigger shock to me was. And kudos, the Vancouver managed to dump basically, well, certainly the Erickson contract was dead weight. To some degree, Beagle and Roussel too. I liked Roussel, but you have to let it go. I think overall they've improved. I think in terms of overall, but as far as defense. Yeah, you certainly you lose something. I mean, I don't know. Edler, I guess, wanted to make a change. He signs. I think it was 1 year in LA. I've heard a couple different reports, but it's one.
I think it was one.
Yeah. They managed to. They made the Ekman-Larsson thing. I think there's some potential there. If you're talking about the defense in terms of defensive play, yeah, there might still be some other moves happening. I mean, I don't know. They go back and go circle around and bring back Shen, who's now had 2 cups since he was last here. They've made some other moves. I mean, Hughes will probably get signed again. And I guess Hamonic was a good partner with Hughes. So I think there is so much information out there on nowadays with every. You turn the corner and everybody's got an opinion on what's going on, and so I think it's a question of I think Vancouver has done a lot more than I thought they would do, and made some significant progress. I mean, putting aside just the defense, I mean, Halak on the surface I think is an upgrade. I mean, Holtby, I was disappointed that I thought he would be he was going to be a veteran presence, and he had a few little flashes there. But at the end, when there was, they were hanging on by the skin of their teeth, basically to try to make the playoffs. He couldn't really run with it. And I think, the buyouts that have happened. I guess there was him. I'm not going to get into something that's in front of various legal proceedings. I'm just going to say I think it was the right decision to get rid of to buy out Virtanen, to buy out Holtby, and. I think that the team overall is going to be a lot of the players I really don't know a lot about. And I just think overall, I mean, I think it's an upgrade. I'm not disappointed that Schmidt's gone. I, from the get-go, felt he had to learn the system and that, but I can, off the top of my head, just think of, probably 3 or 4 situations where he just seemed, the only word I can use is lost, like in the defensive zone. And there were flashes. But I think even the stats will prove that he declined over what he had done in Vegas. So
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not disappointed about that. I give credit to Benning for dumping a lot of salary. Now he's got to get Pedersen signed, and I don't know. I haven't been able to watch Twitter or any of these things. There's been a lot going on today. I think you guys mentioned before we started, and I've seen a few of the things. So that's my very sort of broad take of things. I think they're going to be better overall, like collectively.
Mm-hmm.
Is their defense going to be better? Well, we'll see. I mean, they've traded for Ekman Larson. They've, re-signed Hamonic. And I think, a proper season where it's not this, COVID situation anymore, maybe we can get back to some sort of normalcy and we can just, hopefully Vancouver can sort of take last year and throw it out as it were.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had a pretty good season that was, that altered COVID bubble in Edmonton season, and they had a pretty good push. Some people will say it was a fluke. I don't want to say it was a fluke. I think they made some dramatic things happen last year and this last season, and I think they've got some good potential. So I think I'm cautiously optimistic. That's how I'll put it.
I think the thing with the Vancouver Canucks is that, going forward into next year, just their defense is the worst part. Like Oliver Ekman-Larsson, I look at the guy, I see him as a downgrade compared to Nate Schmidt. I totally agree. Nate Schmidt's analytics on defense were way down, but Oliver Ekman-Larsson's offensive analytics were, lower than what Nate Schmidt is. Nate Schmidt is a better offensively minded defenseman than what Ekman-Larsson is right now. Not saying Ekman-Larsson, he used to be an amazing defenseman. The numbers that he used to put up when he was a bit younger, and now maybe he needs a new system. Maybe he needs a new team. Maybe the going to Vancouver will be able to fix that, but who knows? I mean, look at Tyler Myers. I think that was also the biggest example of a player that declined coming to Vancouver. So we'll really have to see how well that defensive core pans out, because right now it looks like it could potentially be one of the worst defensive cores in the league alongside of the Edmonton Oilers, which I'll be getting into that later on. But I give it. Connor Garland, amazing pickup. He's going to be an amazing player coming up that lineup. You guys needed another right winger, especially since you don't really, since Jake Virtanen didn't really fit into the squad and the whole situation that he was also put into as well. I think also getting Pedersen and Hughes back is huge. But the thing is that Ekman-Larsson trade, I don't really like it. I like it in the Arizona hands because they're only having to play a year of Roussel, Beagle, and Eriksson. Well, Vancouver's stuck with the next 6 years of Ekman-Larsson, which might hurt them in the long run. And you guys also lost Dylan Guenther, which would have been an amazing prospect coming up the pipeline as well for the Canucks. So it's a rough deal. I don't think it's a win. It's a win because you guys got Connor Garland, but it's a loss since you lost Dylan Guenther and had to take in so much cap, especially with Ekman-Larsson.
Well, I'm going to jump in here, and this is going to sound like a slight towards your favorite team, but I'm just going to say that, and it's not really intended other than I don't know who to credit it to, but there was one comment that there reaches a point where having all these prospects, and okay, you have another prospect, you have another prospect, you have another prospect. I think Vancouver's trying to make a push here now. That can be debated. I just think, there was the fact that you had a guy like Eriksson making $6 million a year, and to go another year where he would have been sitting there and you're paying him for nothing, and it's an asset. And I think, Ekman-Larsson, sure, you pass up potentially Guenther for the same, assuming you took the same pick, the same player. But there reaches a point, I think, where sometimes you have to sort of say, I think some of the stuff that I've seen out there was saying, okay, for whatever the reason, this was that same player that he was after here, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, when supposedly, quote unquote, he ran out of time, which is laughable. Last year with Toffoli, I just think that he obviously felt there was enough good and upside in going with Ekman-Larsson. And I'm going to give credit to him. He's on a short leash here, and there is to some degree, he's kind of, in a way, sacrificed the future. But there reaches a point where you need to sort of show your current team that you want to build around. And I think they've improved in a lot of areas. They've added, a veteran goalie at less money than they were paying Holtby. Yeah, the numbers that I saw with, looking at the Ekman-Larsson versus what you gave up, sure, it's only 1 year versus you've got, a number of years here with Ekman-Larsson, but you have to sometimes, it's that combination of looking at the short term and the long term. And I think they've tried to kind of hedge their bets here.
But
and they've said, we can't continue, looking over at a prospect. We're going to add a prospect. So
that's the thing. The Vancouver Canucks have always done this. I mean, look at when they signed Louis Eriksson to that 6-year deal. This is the exact same thing once again. You have a 30-year-old player, which was Louis Eriksson back in 2016. He was a 30-year-old player. Ekman-Larsson's 30-year-old. He's, Louis Eriksson, before he signed that contract, he looked good. He looked like he could play very good. But Vancouver was on the way out. And I think Vancouver, yes, they're on the way up this time and things are going better. But you took an identical contract in Louis Eriksson, which was actually higher in cap hit too with Ekman-Larsson. It's a big risk. It could potentially turn out to be amazing for the Vancouver Canucks, but I just think the defensive lackings will be the biggest hindrance in the Vancouver Canucks. But I mean, anything can happen in this weak Pacific Division right now. It is a very weak division, and I'll quickly send it over to Calvin here.
So this has to do with the Canucks. It's not quite about their draft, but I know we are a hockey podcast, but ongoing right now is the first round of the NBA draft. And I guess I'm being fact guy Calvin today with the interesting facts. So Tyler Myers of the Canucks, he has a half brother named Quentin Grimes, and he was just drafted today in the NBA, and they become the first pair of brothers to play simultaneously in the NBA and NHL. So that is an official stat, because Quentin Grimes got drafted today in the NBA draft. So Tyler Myers has a half brother that plays in the NBA, and they're the first pair of brothers to play in both sports at the same time.
Damn, that is pretty damn cool. That is absolutely sick. But I gotta say, Mark, the Vancouver Canucks did improve in some areas of their game. Connor Garland, great pickup. I think the biggest lack was the defensive end. And I think that will come back to bite them going through this next season, because Thatcher Demko is going to be relied on a lot. And I guess we're going to be seeing how good the defensive core is, and will it pan out to what Benning thinks. And also another team that totally trashed their defensive core as well was Ken Holland and the Edmonton Oilers. His free agency day was a spectacle. I was working throughout this day, and I got to say, it was one of the most painful days to work. From 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I was seeing every bits of news throughout the work, and I had to deal with the overwhelming fear of having to make 3 years worth of content on Tyson Barrie. Oh, I'm not a big fan of Tyson Barrie. Never really have. The guy is a great offensive defenseman, and he's a decent one at that. Not the greatest, but his defensive game is lackluster. And, then we also picked up Cody Ceci for 4 years at 3.25. And our defensive core looks pretty rough. Right now, it looks like Nurse and Barrie, which was a defensive travesty throughout the season. Then now we have Keith and Ceci, which Keith can't be relied on defensively. And Ceci, great defensive defenseman pickup. I give it to us. Cody Ceci is very solid, but the term is a bit long. The cap hit's not bad. I don't mind paying him 3.25. The term might be a little too long, though. Just because of the fact that we do have some young defensemen that might be coming up the pipeline. And we also traded away Ethan Bear, which I thought was just dumb. We picked up a nice top 9 guy in Warren Foegele, which I like. I really do like the fact that we picked up Warren Foegele. He's going to be a perfect top 9 winger for the Edmonton Oilers. But we lost Ethan Bear, and we picked up Tyson Barrie, who I just don't like defensively. When we already have so many offensive defensemen already in Darnell Nurse and Keith, who can play defense, and we also have Evan Bouchard, we don't need Tyson Barrie, and now we have him for the next 3 years at 4.5, which he did take a pay cut. This guy probably could have been paid almost $8 million out there on the market just because of the year that he had offensively. Otherwise, Derek Ryan, 2 years at 1.25 million there, a stellar deal. I think whether he'll be a fourth, third liner, I think he'll be a pivotal part for our depth going into next season. And also Zach Hyman, he signed a 7-year deal worth 5.5 million. The thing with Zach Hyman, if you paid him lower term, you would have had to pay him more money. And so we decided to give him the longer term so we could give him a cheaper contract. I think Zach Hyman's going to be a perfect guy for the Edmonton Oilers, honestly. He plays perfect with All-Stars, so whether he's playing with McDavid or Draisaitl, I think he'll do very well. And I could almost see him playing alongside of Draisaitl just because of the fact that when he was playing in Toronto, Matthews was the goal scorer and centerman. And that's the same kind of thing with Draisaitl. He's a very creative goal scoring centerman, which I think Zach Hyman could fit perfectly alongside of him and Kayla Yamamoto as well. But our forward core, awesome. I love it. Our defensive core is rough and a huge kick in the nads that we lost Larson and Bear. I absolutely hate it. And then seeing the goaltending still being Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith and having to go with that for another season and signing Mike Smith for 2 years is just absolutely rough and disappointing to say the least.
That seems to have Dave Tippett's name all over it, because if I recall, Smith has been at least in Tippett was in Arizona / Phoenix. Tippett was in Dallas, and I believe Smith was in, well, certainly I think in at least one of those cities. And he's when Tippett was there, and I think originally Smith was, or at some point he was in Dallas too. So I think there's some kind of linkage there, but I'll just jump in. I agree with Bear. I think that's disappointing. And I think the optics on it too. Was there not something where he had to come to his defense there recently? Oh yeah, there was something that they were
death threatening him. They were death threatening him on social media.
The optics of him are bad. I'm not an Oilers fan, but I sort of grew to appreciate him as a player. I didn't know a lot about him, and I was shocked to some degree. I mean, shocked may sound like overstatement, but for him to be traded, I mean, I guess like they always say, no pun intended, if Gretzky was traded, well, then almost anybody can be traded, right? So I guess, I just want to jump in, if I can add in one thing. This is hockey related. It's not quite the area we're going in. The news coming out, and I see it's been making some news, reference Sportsnet today, and that, don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Luke Prokop, the Nashville Predators draft pick. He came out. Now he's not in the NHL yet. He's a draft pick, and it'll be interesting to see. And I think there was the expected, some people, making inappropriate comments in various social media circles, but he came out as gay, and 19-year-old from Edmonton, 2020 draft pick of Nashville. And apparently today, I don't know who to credit this to, but he got a surprise call from a somewhat known singer, Elton John. And asked him how he was doing, et cetera, et cetera. So you can look that up online. But I give the guy credit, because it'll be interesting. I mean, he hasn't made the NHL. There's no players that are have sort of earned a spot on the NHL team that have done this, and and who knows what the real numbers are out there. But for whatever the reason, he just finds enough's enough, and I give him credit, because it takes a lot of courage, more than what a lot of people would probably understand. So,
and he left out. He's a former Calgary Hitman. So
yes, he is the Calgary Hitman with the
WHL. Not there's any correlation. No, not making a joke, okay. What I'm trying to get at is I've seen him play, and he's a good defenseman. He's a big guy. He moves the puck well. So I think he will crack Nashville's lineup. It's a matter of when. And especially with Nashville, I think there's a lot of questions around their team this year as to what they're going to be. So he could crack their lineup this year. I hope he does. Not even just all the coming out of the closet thing aside, just out of pure hockey, he's a good hockey player. It doesn't matter if he's gay, straight, bisexual, whatever, right? Hockey's hockey. But on that subject, I hopefully I'm not cutting you off, Peyton. Hopefully you don't need to talk about more Oilers. But how about Montreal with their pick in the first round? I feel like we really need to talk about that, because that was just, when I was listening to the draft on the radio, because I was driving. Pat Steinberg is the local like hockey guy in Calgary. He usually hosts stuff for the Fan 960 when it comes to like the big NHL events or Flames games. I've never heard Pat Steinberg speechless before, but when he realized that was the pick Montreal made, he had no words, and that just says a lot about that. So I don't know, Peyton, maybe you want to explain the story.
I don't even really remember what happened because I wasn't too involved into the situation. What was it again? What did Logan do?
So this player, Logan is his first name. I off the top of my head, I don't know his last name. Sorry. Anyway, so he was playing in Sweden because of the shortened season. Like he wasn't. He was with an OHL team, I'm pretty sure. And because of the shortened season, he went over to Sweden. And while he was over there, he had sexual relations with a girl, and it was consent. Yeah. There was consent to that, but then apparently he took an inappropriate photo, which was not consented to, and then that photo got around, and so he was charged for that in Sweden.
Right,
and then he went to Twitter and he said, "I renounce myself from the draft." And technically, you cannot do that. The NHL came out and said, you cannot pull yourself out of the draft. But he requested that he not be drafted. And he said, I haven't shown my maturity. That was wrong what I did. And I want to be drafted on maturity along with hockey skill. I need to prove that I am a better person and I know how to change my ways after this. And then still, Marc Bergevin goes ahead and picks him in the first round. And that just dropped a lot of jaws.
It does. And, the countless people that I knew that did this type of stuff is a lot. And, it's definitely not something that should be done. You should never, take a picture of, sexual stuff and send it to people. It's disrespectful and you should not be doing that. It's messed up. It's something that you keep private or don't even take it at all. That's the way I see it. And I know a lot of people that have done this before. It's nasty, and people should not be doing this. And Montreal's decision to pick him, I mean, maybe they could grow him. It's definitely a messed up situation. It could be worse. Not saying that this is, something that is light. It's still a very messed up situation, but this is where the kid could grow. If he does really feel remorseful and he thinks he could come back from it, then awesome. All to his own. I think people deserve second chances in this world. Sometimes not all, but this kid does deserve a second chance. I think he'll grow. And if he does it again, then he might not be back in the NHL. Hopefully. I mean, we've seen it with multiple examples of players who seem to do messed up stuff, but seem to always come back. I guess one player you could look at is Tony DeAngelo, where he made a fake Twitter to reply to people roasting him all the time. And he was also just a complete buffoon as well. But
you're also forgetting last year. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no worries.
Arizona's pick last year, their first round, they pick him, and then the story comes out that he bullied this kid so horribly when they were in school together, and then Arizona renounced the pick. Now, why Montreal hasn't jumped on we renounce our pick? Maybe they're too scared to do that because they're basically giving up their first round pick.
Yeah, that could be the case because Mitchell Miller, I think, was a lower pick. I think he was like, what was it, third, fourth? And I don't think Arizona, I don't know even what Arizona
he was Arizona's first, it was Arizona's first pick of the draft. I don't think they had a pick in the early rounds.
Yeah.
But he was their first pick of the draft. So they're giving away basically their first prospect from last year's draft. That's what they did by renouncing the pick.
Yeah. No, he got drafted in the fourth round. I think it was, I can't even remember what pick it was for Arizona. I don't even remember if they had a lot of picks in this draft.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I'm pretty sure that was their first pick of the draft. I don't think they had anybody in the first 3 rounds because of just trades and sanctions against them and such.
Huh. Well, yeah, I think this is where we all need to grow. And if you are out there, don't be doing this stuff. Be nice to people. I see a lot of people out there. I was on hockey teams where I got bullied and picked on a lot. Where the veterans would treat the rookies like crap and make them do stuff for them. It's nasty what some of these veterans can do, and I think hockey is supposed to be a place of growth and supposed to be a place of going out there and having fun. It's not supposed to be where you're ragdolling some guy or, sending nude pictures of some girl doing something to you to all your buddies. It's not a joke. It's something private. That's disrespectful. Don't be a piece of shit like the rest of these guys. Be a nice human being and don't become like the Mitchell Miller and the Logan Mellicks. You don't want, to go through this type of stuff and just don't do it just in general. But we will pivot towards another conversation here as we are been just flying through the podcast as we have got into a lot of subjects in this episode today. Actually, I'll quickly hand it over to Mark before we headed off this subject if he has anything else to add.
I mean, it's not specifically to Vancouver, but I see Corey Perry has signed with the Lightning. And that just shocks me because I don't understand what the background on that is. I mean, I thought he was a pretty good contributor, and it wasn't a lot of money. I don't have it handy here, just working off my phone here. But
I think it was $3 million over 2 years. I think it's $1.5 million a season.
$1.5 million. So I don't understand why Montreal wouldn't see the value in keeping him for that. I mean,
I don't think he wanted to stay in Montreal. I honestly,
it was Corey Perry got paid $1 million for 2 years, and I think he just wanted to join. He got beat by Tampa Bay 2 years in a row. So if you can't beat him, join him.
Who thinks if anyone thinks Tampa Bay is winning 3 in a row, I think they're crazy.
No,
I don't think they're bad now, but I don't think they're cup.
You know what? They could be very underrated though. Like there are a lot of their younger players probably could have played in the lineup. Legit. Like you look at Ross Colton and how big of an impact he was in that cup run for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He was pretty pivotal. And a lot of those depth players could play some pivotal minutes, especially, signing Pierre-Edouard Bellemar's a nice two-way pickup, Corey Perry. It's just you have a lot of big question marks. Matthew Joseph, I think, could play very well. Ross Colton, I think, could play very well. I just think you're putting a lot of trust in those younger guys to take those types of minutes. And I think they could do good because their lineup was stacked. I mean, the amount of guys they lost throughout this offseason, Coleman, Johnson, Goudreau. I mean, the amount of guys they lost was just insane. And we'll have to see how well their depth does. But I think they're young. The youngsters that they drafted over the years, I think they're ready to step on up and take some NHL spots. But we'll move on here and we'll talk about some trades that have happened in the NHL over the past little bit. We'll actually talk about a recent one here as Colorado, they have moved Darcy Kemper, or Colorado picked up Darcy Kemper, I meant, and Arizona picked up Connor Timmins, a 2022 first-round pick and a conditional third-round pick. This is a good deal, honestly, for Colorado. Darcy Kemper had a little bit of a down year. It's a little bit of an overpayment, but when it's the last goalie on the market and there's a lot of teams after him, I was really hoping the Oilers were on this guy, but they weren't. They were, but Colorado outbid everyone, and they picked up the big old Darcy Kemper. And I'll send this one over to Kelvin. How do you think this improves the goaltending? Do you think this is an upgrade from Grubauer, and do you think Kemper will be enough for the Avalanche to take that next step up?
Well, Kemper's been in a bad market, and when I say bad market, I just mean that the Arizona Coyotes are a hot dumpster fire. So now that he has a better team in front of him, I think he's only going to improve because he's going to have less weight on his shoulders. I know there's still that weight that Colorado really wants to win a Stanley Cup as soon as they can because their window is starting to close. I mean, somehow they re-signed Landeskog, which surprised me. I thought he was going to definitely leave for somewhere else. But the re-signing of Landeskog helps. They still have McKinnon. They re-signed Cale Makar. and to a big contract too. So they're good in every aspect, really. And I don't think the change in goaltending is going to affect them in a huge way, but they're still pretty solid in net with adding Kemper. And then just to add on to the whole this goalie carousel, I'm not gonna know who is with what team until they start playing. Like it's gonna be in my head. I'm like, okay, who's with who now? Like I know Riddick only because he was a Flame was traded to Toronto, and now he's signed with Nashville. So hopefully, I hope for him, just being a former Flame, can get the starting job in Nashville. But like, there's so many goalies going to new places, and Carolina just doing a whole goalie shuffle. It's like, who's going where? And I mean, what team's going to have elite goaltending? And okay, if we're talking about goaltending, I'm sorry to be a little ADD here, but we really have to talk about Marc-Andre Fleury.
I know
if
that
we're
dude.
talking about
I was just about to get into that. I was
that,
just about to get into this backstabbing move
oh,
by the Vegas Golden Knights as
oh.
Fleury figured this out over Twitter. He figured out the trade over Twitter. McCrimmon didn't give him a call, nothing. Just Fleury figured it out over Twitter that he got sent off to the Chicago Blackhawks. That is unbelievable.
But here's the thing: there's still rumors that Chicago might try and pawn him off to. There's rumor. If this is rumors, I've seen them that Chicago might be trying to work a deal where Fleury goes back to the Penguins. But is he going to want to go back to the Penguins? Is the thing. Is he even going to want to play this season? Another question. I see Mark. Mark, you probably have a little bit of thoughts on this too. Hey.
Yeah, I would say that, first of all, I think I've read, again, I can't credit the proper source because it's been out there, whether it be Sportsnet or whatever, that I think Burke and Hextall would gain a lot of goodwill, as it were, to bring him back. And the only thing I can tie it to a little bit, and as a Canucks fan, is when Burke crafted a deal to bring back Linden after Burke came back to Vancouver and Messier was gone and all that. Now, not quite the same thing, but sometimes you do circle around and try to bring a player back in different ways. I mean, they weren't the management when Fleury was allowed to be exposed for the expansion draft. Vegas, I can't figure out what's going on there. They've given the reins to McCrimmon, and I mean, a lot of things have happened. McPhee has done a lot of good stuff there building that team, but now he's not the GM. He's just the president of hockey operations. So he's kind of leaving it to McCrimmon. Yeah, I agree. It's terrible way to handle. I mean, even in this day and age, there's a courtesy, and I don't know if he ever did get a call. I can't understand how he couldn't have got a call or something from the Vegas. Chicago, yeah, it's a very, very strange deal. And I could see, the rumor was somewhere that I want to say it's Jerry that Pittsburgh has right now as their young goalie. And the rumor is they might
Tristan Jarry there.
Jarry, yeah, and they might move him to Chicago. And as a sort of a bit of a PR move, maybe Fleury. I mean, he had 3 cups there. He's close with a number of the players that are still there. And it might be something that they do just as a, let him maybe finish out his career. I mean, I'm not even sure what age he's at right now, but he must be in his 30s, I'm guessing. And, let him finish out his career in Pittsburgh. So I think it's quite possible, but they would probably have to have some kind of assurance that, because, yeah, the rumor is that he might just retire in Chicago. And then I've lost track of that trade. I don't know what Chicago would have to show for it. Then there would probably be some, resolution to that if that's he doesn't report or what have you.
Well, Chicago doesn't lose anything, do they? I don't think they actually really lose any assets.
No, Chicago didn't lose anything. They lost like Hucker Ryan or something. It was basically just a bag of pucks for Marc-Andre Fleury, which is what it basically was.
Twitter had so many things, but like at first it was reported that he was traded for this like guy that was playing in the AHL for Chicago. So it was basically like giving away Fleury for nothing. And then but then there was a report that he wasn't traded for anything and he was just given to Chicago, basically like his player rights traded to Chicago. But then they said, okay, actually it was a 1-for-1, but the guy apparently that was traded for Fleury is still going to play in Chicago's farm system, but his player rights belong to Vegas, which is like, okay, what the hell's going on? Like that's the kind of thing where when the front office isn't like talking about it. The fact it was
So,
broken through Twitter.
I was just going to say on NHL.com, they're saying this is a story from a day or two ago. They are saying that he was traded, Fleury, to Chicago for forward prospect, and I'll try the name, Mikhail Hakkarainen. And so and I don't have a lot of other details on that, but so there was a player involved in the trade, but I think it was maybe a salary dump, basically. So
yeah, that's what Vegas did. But that's the thing. It's the salary cap dump that, like, it was just outrageous. Like, he's a Vezina winning goalie and just put up like an insanely good season. It's just weird to dump him off for nothing.
And speaking of the Vezina, Payton, so this Fleury trade is only the second time a goalie has been traded after winning the Vezina. Now, because I'm fact guy Calvin today, I got another one, another cool fact that I have in the back of my head. But before I tell you who the first one was, I think you might want to guess it. I'll give you a hint.
I'm guessing.
Buffalo to Detroit. Who was the first goalie to be traded after winning a Vezina?
I'm thinking that's Dominik Hasek then.
And you would be correct. He was the first goalie to be traded after winning a Vezina, but that trade was warranted because look what he did with Detroit. This trade with Fleury, like, what the hell's going on?
It's weird. I was almost about to say Patrick Waugh, but good thing I said Dominik Hasek. I totally forgot that Dominik Hasek won a Vezina and got traded, but that's Buffalo for you. They're about to dump off Jack Eichel to Vegas, so I'm really excited about that. We get to see Eichel versus McDavid a lot. Woohoo! But anyways,
is that the rumor going around? Is that Vegas is all in on Eichel?
I don't know. They're really reluctant. I think.
So why wouldn't they keep
Payton
Fleury and try and trade him to Buffalo? Like, what?
Because Buffalo also Fleury has a no trade clause. He wouldn't want to go to Buffalo. Hell no. Fleury be like, hell no. I'm not going to Buffalo. Yet
Chicago was off his no trade list. I don't understand that.
Buffalo has, I guess, maybe it's the city, but Buffalo's like going to be a tanking team hardcore this year. Have you seen their goalie tandem with Craig Anderson and Aaron Dell?
They're going for Connor Bedard in 2025 or whenever Bedard's eligible.
They're going for Shane Wright. Shane Wright this year is coming up, and then you got Connor Bedard. So the next 2 years are going to be stellar for prospects. But I think that will cap it off for today's episode. It's been a long one. We talked about tons of stuff. We'll get into our final thoughts of the episode, though, as I'll send over to Mark on his final thoughts for the podcast.
I think just in general, I mean, I was very surprised at, just how, as you said at the outset, how much went on just overall. I mean, it's almost like the old, the trade deadline, thing that used to be, they almost made it into a show a few years there, and then it became pretty quiet. This year, I mean, the free agent moves, it's been, the quantity has been astronomical, and some of the moves, I can't quite, digest, and I'm talking about other teams around the league, but, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, obviously they all figure they're the experts and they've made the right moves. And I will just add, the one that kind of surprised me was Martin Jones. I think it was bought out from San Jose, and I don't know. I thought he was, I guess, he maybe wasn't perfect and great, but there's another example. I think they got him from LA, and then he wasn't the right fit. So I mean, I from what I've seen of Martin Jones, I think he's I think he's a quality player, and some of the moves are a little bit strange, but it was certainly a very, very busy time, and we're still got some time to see what else makes shake down here before the first game is played this fall.
Mm-hmm. And I'll send it over to Kelvin on his final thoughts.
All right. Well, after what Mark just said, I do want to point out that Martin Jones, again, another player that used to play for the Hitmen, and I'm with Mark on the surprise from that, because he's a championship caliber goaltender. He won the 2010 Western Hockey League Finals with the Calgary Hitmen, and then as a backup, even though he was a backup, still got a Stanley Cup with the LA Kings. And then goes to San Jose, and of course San Jose kind of had a little bit of a roller coaster with him in net. They did make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, so he was in another cup, and that one was all him. They lost, sadly. I kind of wish they'd won. But besides that, getting to my actual final thoughts, I'll start with Chicago. If Fleury does decide to play for them and they don't trade him to another team before the season starts, my money's on Chicago to make a deep cup run. Just with the return of Taves, with Kane, a renewed defensive core. They got the Jones brothers. I just think Chicago, I might put a little money on them to go deep in the playoffs. And then going to Calgary, I think there's still a little bit more work to be done this offseason. I don't think they're going to stay quiet. I do think something could be in the works with Monahan or Gaudreau, although apparently there's talks with Gaudreau right now about an extension, and apparently the talks are going well from what I've heard. There's nothing to show that it's going off the rails, so that's a good sign if the Flames are planning to keep Gaudreau or maybe even a sign and trade. We'll see what happens with that. And yeah, that's my final. I guess the Flames still have a little bit of work to be done, and hopefully we get some good news that maybe someone's on the move and someone's else is coming to the city of Calgary.
I honestly, talking about Martin Jones there, I wasn't surprised he was bought out. He was kind of in the down stretch of his career, wasn't playing very well. His numbers over the past 3 seasons, even when he went into the Stanley Cup Finals, weren't tremendous. I don't know why Philly would pay him $2 million. I mean, he is really good friends, I think, with Carter Hart there, from what I heard. So maybe it'll work out for the long run for the Philadelphia Flyers, and maybe he'll be able to get back to that form, because San Jose, they were pretty damn bad defensively. So I'm definitely not throwing it all on Martin Jones, because the defensive core they had there in San Jose was pretty atrocious. But for my final thoughts, I just got to say the Oilers offseason has been pretty rough. Duncan Keith was not somebody I wanted to trade for, especially the way that we traded him and the way that everything else has looked. Every other trade that, has been a salary cap dump, usually, we don't pay. Usually you get paid for taking a player like that. But yet Holland was dumb and paid Chicago for Duncan Keith, which just absolutely blows my mind. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a good night, whatever. And we'll see you guys in the next episode, which will probably be near the starting of the season, which will be probably a month and a half away. So we're going to be probably taking a little bit of a hiatus for the next month, and then we'll be back at it again when I actually have better internet, and we'll be able to do a little bit of longer episodes, which will be nice. This was a nice little longer episode for the first time in a while, where we almost hit an hour. So I hope you guys enjoyed this awesome PCM hockey podcast. But for right now, guys, we're going to sign off here. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys all in the next one. Adios.